So I hope you got the pile. I haven't sent a clean one, although I did say that I would. I'll get it out in a week or so. My goal tonight is to identify whatever changes we might want to make to draft number 2 and to think about a time when we would want to have a first meeting of people that have not yet been participants. I think of it as a stakeholders meeting in which local council might come if they're, in the game of developing things in your town. Or we could invite other boards, Board of Selectmen, Board of Health, Conservation Commission. I don't think conservation or health really have a particular axe to grind here. But it's always good to get the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee on board because we're going to need their endorsement when we get to town meeting. And it's July 9th today, so if we're going to do this, we probably should do it somewhere around the end of this month so that people can have the peace and quiet of August that we all deserve. So keep those things in the back of your mind as we go forward. There were a bunch of things that we talked about last time that I added to the materials sent over in separate files. So I thought maybe we would tackle those first to see if there's any interest in these things added to the draft as I take notes tonight and then go to a third draft for the stakeholders meeting. The first one is this concept of graded retail sales. And if you can share screen with me, I think I can put this up.
And this is the Medford retail sale categories document?
Yeah.
I'm personally in favor of grading the scale of the retail.
You want me to put it on the screen?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, there it is. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So this is subject to negotiation. These numbers don't mean anything unless you think they're okay. But it basically assigns 4 categories. Neighborhood would be 0 to 2,500. Convenience would be more directed towards a district with 25 to 5,000. Retail generic really would be 5 to 15. That's a big category. And anything bigger than 15,001 is large. And I know you've got a kicker in your use table that says anything over a certain size is going to need a special permit anyway. So
yeah, 10,000.
Yeah. So that's good to keep in mind when you decide how you want to deal with these retail categories.
So in theory, the special permit would cover half of that general category as well. Yeah. As well as anything that's large.
Assuming you want to stay with 10,000 as your threshold.
10,000 seems to work for now.
Okay, and some have bigger numbers. I think Dedham I might have mentioned as 25. But if you're comfortable with this and you're catching what you need to catch at 10, that's no sense in changing it.
Well, I would just throw out there that there may be targeted areas where we'd like to increase that threshold to promote development. Maybe there's a way of using a system like this that we could say that, if let's say you're in the village center core area, which we were trying to incentivize development in that area, but maybe we could bump up the threshold to say 15,000 that triggers a special permit in village center core, something like that.
I mean, at this point, we're just doing I have no objection to including these as definitions and clarifications in the use table. The second question is, are we just putting them in and giving them all the same treatment for now and evaluating a change later? Or are we trying to do both at once?
I think what you said makes sense. If we just say yes to the idea right now and come back with any adjusted numbers that we might think would get us through this meeting quicker.
I would think that you would have special permit for anything over 10,000, and then I don't necessarily want to excuse anybody, including neighborhood, from site plan review.
Yeah.
The
At
worst-
this point, we're just saying add them to the definitions in the use table, but not necessarily introducing differences within the uses at this point,
Okay,
depending on zone.
when I add them to the use table, it would come in under F in the subsections. And I'd have to make 4 entries instead of just 1 for retail establishment. So that would be, that would actually be broken down into 4 subcategories. Do I just treat them all the same across the board as they are now? 3 no's and 4 yeses?
I think we could start by treating it the same, and then as we decide, maybe in the following week or two or whatever, how we feel about where smaller places should be placed. I mean, we can all agree that any of it would fit in a commercial zone.
It would be odd to have retail sales neighborhood and then not allow them in residential, in my opinion.
Right, I think the smallest is what we'd have to consider would be the most for a neighborhood. Is 2,500 a reasonable size for a small neighborhood store? Or because where are we going to put the neighborhood retail? It seemingly it would go in a residential neighborhood.
The name sort of implies that.
So we're going to cross the boundary of a full commercial zone.
Yeah, and they're going to start getting into, all right, well, we have parking requirements.
But you do have some residential zoning along our 2 main corridors. If there's a way to tie that specific location as a criteria, that's possible. I mean, that's something we should talk about at some point.
I have no problem with the idea of stores entering the neighborhood, especially with a special permit, and we might have some conditions about it, so that shouldn't be much of an issue. If we put a requirement that it shouldn't be way tucked away in a neighborhood far from a road or something, that maybe that's a different criteria. But
I mean, is the only suggestion that we're making that we include retail sales neighborhood in R40?
it would be in our most multi-use, or how would you say a district? Yeah, it'd be the R40, village commercial, wherever there's houses and business.
I don't have an objection to penciling that in as we're keeping the highlights of yellow is new, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
that would be a very obvious retail and retail and residential. Let's make sure everybody sees this when they look at it.
Special permit
So
for the neighborhood in the R40?
Yeah, I would want it to go without a check.
What what's the threshold for site plan?
2,500.
And we don't have a site plan notation in our use table. It's just yes or special permit, or no or special permit, basically.
Yeah, I can add a box at the end, a new column that says site plan, and then put R for required or leave it blank. Some towns do it by size threshold and some towns do it by the particular use, regardless of the size. So that's a decision you have to make. But right now, under site plan applicability, it would be 3 or more attached residential uses, 2,500 square feet of non-residential space, and in the village center core, special requirements. Drive-through facilities and clearing, grading, and excavation.
Yeah. Drive-throughs get its own process. Yeah. So to have a review for anything under 2,500, we'd need to have a special catch somewhere.
Why not just make it retail sales? If it's under 2,500 and no other use would be subject to that. I mean, if you want to see what happens when you don't put this under site plan review and you've got 2,500, under 2,500, let's have a cup of coffee at the Concord Starbucks tomorrow.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It's a disaster.
So we would be adding an additional site plan criteria, basically.
I would just say neighborhood retail sales, 0 to 2,500 square feet. So you'd call it out as a use rather than as a size threshold.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're adding it to the use table in R40 and then adding an additional site plan step.
Yeah, if we.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I probably will move some of this applicability to the intro to the use table, just so that people know that they have to cross-check.
As I think everybody has said, we all will enjoy having all the definitions in one spot.
Yep. Well, you can see what that looks like now. I think they're all in. Okay. So
one down.
That addresses one of these things. Let me keep my notes clear here. The corner, why don't we do the corner clearance one next? It's easy.
Again for Medford. Okay.
I don't know where corner clearance is. So let's take the split lots thing. That's from Medford. So this is split lots in Medford. Somebody had asked to see this. And this is really nothing atypical. This is pretty much something that you find in many bylaws.
I'm not sure it's going to work correctly for us. I've identified at least 3 lots down on Old Colony where this is going to be a problem, where they're zoned commercial and industrial. And the commercial is along 123. The industrial is along the pond. And the industrial is the much bigger portion.
Well, they're pre-existing non-conforming. That's
correct, but right now we don't know what to do with it. So the front part of it facing 123 is commercial. The back part is industrial. If we adopt this, then there could be parcels.
There'd be parcels on 123 that would be industrial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
and they only go to industrial. I see 30 feet in. But I'm wondering, is the opposite true? Meaning, because it does say at the option of the lot owner. So if the lot owner at 380 Old Colony said, I want to put in a bed and breakfast, which is a valid commercial use on the industrial side of their property, which is along the pond, can he do it?
There is another model.
I mean, what would they do right now without this?
I don't
They
know.
would,
We have
they
no
would-
guidelines.
I mean, I know we don't have the building commissioner here, but I would think that we would say, put your commercial stuff where it's allowed, put your industrial stuff where it's allowed. Otherwise, we're going to be talking about variances or permits or other fun stuff.
Yeah.
Is that so this is basically just saying, if the lot is split, you can choose to have it governed by whatever the larger piece is
There's
at the
another-
option of
there's-
the owner.
There's another approach though. And I didn't show it to you, but there is another approach, and that's to say that the regulations of the more restricted district can be, the regulations of the less restricted district can be extended into the more restricted district 30 feet, either as of right or by special permit. So it doesn't focus on the size of the area zoned, it focuses on the restrictions of the areas. And you can take, so for example, you can take an industrial use 30 feet into a commercial use, assuming that the commercial use is stricter than the industrial use. And the same would work for residence. Commercial can move into residence, but only 30 feet.
I'm thinking out loud here. Would there be an opportunity, and this is probably muddying the waters, but in the instance that Laura's bringing up, I would have less concern about that. I don't have an issue if the more permissive gets extended, but I'm wondering when residential's involved, we have a condition in there to say when it's one of our residential zones, then keep it as the more restrictive.
Because Hilltop Johnny's is part industrial, part residential, that lot.
If I could chime in our industrial zone, we already allow hotels. So we do let people stay there. It's kind of.
Yeah, but bed and breakfast isn't allowed in industrial.
Because there's no single family homes allowed. And that bed and breakfast needs a single family home.
But there's a single family home already on.
I suppose nobody could start it.
Use, and yeah, we got a split lot. And Hilltop Johnny's is another good example. The building on which the footprint that it sits on is residential, but the part of the woods in the parking lot is industrial. If you go up North Worcester, it's residential, and the back end of some of the properties are commercial or village commercial.
I think that like a use shouldn't cross its zoning district pretty much at all. I mean, I guess the 30-foot rule is, I guess, the leeway, but I don't really think it should cross the full lot. What if it's 10 acres and part of it has, what if it's 3 different zoning districts across that parcel? I don't know if allowing somebody to choose what zone that whole thing is without actually changing the zoning district that it is fair. And our marijuana district, our overlay crosses a bunch of different parcels unevenly, I think, compared to where it is with like the commercial and stuff like that. I wonder how many parcels cross all those things.
Yeah, this sounded like a great idea until I looked at the example and then said, oh, well, how's that going to work? Because, you know, I happen to know certain areas that we do have split lots. And once I started looking at them and parsing the whole thing, I'm like, all right, we're just opening a can of worms here.
But it does help to unify a property.
It does, yeah.
And you know, that's you're bringing up a good example, but there could be plenty of other examples where unifying it like this would actually, you know, increase opportunities for development of these sites. I mean, particularly along Old Colony.
And how we feel about at the end of this 2.5.2, where we're saying, but not more than 30 feet beyond such a zoning district boundary following a site plan review by the planning board or something like, or the zoning or whoever. Like, if you want to do this, if you want to cross over the line, you got to talk to somebody and explain why. You can't make it work with what you got.
Shouldn't you do
That
that
gives
by
people the
special?
that gives people the flexibility if they really deserve it, but it also is a threshold to be like, yes, there's actual relief needed.
I'm fine with the review process for sure.
But you can't say no if it's site plan review.
That's, yeah, site plan, special permit.
Well, just special permit.
It would seem okay that I guess a lesser use could go a like a heavy use area, like a commercial use to an industrial zoning. If that industrial zone was then like prohibited from becoming like a an industrial use afterwards. Well, the commercial use is there, I suppose, if they don't match up.
Yeah. So,
You shouldn't be able to make a hotel then a factory, I guess.
why don't we just put by special permit and then, yeah. Yeah, it gives some flexibility, and crossing a zoning boundary with a split lot seems like yeah, this makes sense for a permit threshold. As much, because I don't want to force people to get a special permit for everything, but it feels like that crosses the threshold.
That's fair. It's
Okay,
vague enough for interpretation.
so is the consensus then that need a special permit under 252?
Yes.
To go up to the 30 feet. Yeah,
And you want to change the larger portion of the property to the more restrictive district the less restricted district can carry over into the more restricted district 30 feet by special permit.
I think that's reasonable.
Okay. All right. Let's take a look at Westport's wonderful agricultural definitions. I haven't teed them up yet. Hang on.
is there a repeat in
There is,
agri-commercial that goes to entertainment?
yes.
The second half of the paragraph looks like it doubles up there.
Having trouble getting it.
If you want, I can share for once.
Go ahead.
Makes me feel useful.
All right.
But yeah,
This-
this
this-
section I think is a double.
It might be, yeah. Yeah, that's the same as what's below it.
Yeah,
With the exception of that last sentence, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so this is Westport's dream. This is their ideal world in which every farm can make lots of money. And, to some extent, agri-entertainment is something that worked pretty well there at the winery.
So
Agritourism works pretty well with farm to table, to the extent that the wedding is at an agricultural venue, it also fits that particular definition.
but in effect, the commercial, entertainment, and tourism definitions are essentially ways to introduce some form of commercial activity onto an agricultural property,
Besides, running.
besides growing things.
Besides running a tractor, right?
In the blunt form of, yeah.
So is this
So-
just because we don't have a definition?
Well, right now, I think you're probably in the world where the definition of accessory use would control if it's customarily and incidental to a agricultural operation. And typically what happens in a case like this is that the operator of the farm goes out and gets the Farm Bureau, for example, to, write a memo.
Say that this is a common accessory use. and you
Yeah,
have
and they
to,
never met one.
and you
they
have to
didn't like.
dispute it. Yeah.
They never met one they didn't like. So I don't have a problem with that if it's not abused, but when you get into something like the Mud Fest in, I can't remember the town, it seems a little bizarre. And then, of course, there's Cowboy Bob doing the 6-gun demonstration.
We do have a rodeo.
Uh, I'm very in support of all of this part. This is fantastic, honestly.
But where would agri-entertainment and agritourism be specifically allowed in the bylaw?
They would be listed as specific accessory uses, and then they would be referenced in the accessory use section. So
So
each
that-
of these definitions would appear, and then after the principal uses would come the accessory uses in the use table, and I would list them specifically and probably put Y across the board, since farms don't seem to respect residential, commercial, or industrial boundaries.
That's what I was wondering. So this could all apply in a residential.
Yeah,
And
certainly a farm in a residence district with more than 5 acres or 2 acres that are qualified, that's $1,000 gross proceeds each. They would be able to argue that this is accessory to their farm anyway.
Looks like we would
Where
need a
does-
definition
where
of
does,
farm enterprise as well.
Would this count to any, this would have to be registered as an agricultural property. It couldn't just be anybody with a little garden. Right?
Well,
Like
the definition of agriculture is up on top.
When we're using a capitalized phrase, farm enterprise throughout, which I'm assuming also has its own definition.
I didn't look that. No, I can check right now. Hang on.
good spot.
I'm thinking of things like, in addition to the rodeo, something we enjoy going to, there's a food truck company, and they do different sites every weekend. And once a month, they do Chase Farm down in Lincoln, Rhode Island. And it's fabulous, absolutely fabulous. And I have no idea what they do on Chase Farm. I think the land is just categorized as agricultural. But it's really well run. you know, it would be really nice to get something like that in Norton if there was the space that permitted it.
Smoky Chestnut
but-
Farm also does events throughout the year. They have a ton of events every year.
Oh, yeah.
And
I've seen
doing
their
well.
events.
Who was
Yeah,
this?
farm enterprise means a farming operation that is entitled to protection under Section 3 of the Act. So that would be agriculture, horticulture, floriculture, aquaculture, viticulture, silviculture.
Which is guaranteed by right for properties 2 or more acres,
Five,
depending on how
five.
they. So, cool.
5 or
So-
more acres, 2 or more qualified.
But I think some of the questions Laura was asking, when we put these in accessory uses, is it overkill to restate allowed only where the primary use of the property qualifies under agricultural uses, see table C?
I think that's very fair.
Yeah,
You
I
don't
can
get-
do, I can do
You don't
that.
get to have a garden and then have a concert in your driveway.
If you can't keep cattle, then you don't get to have a rodeo. That's fair enough.
Basically, if your primary use is an agricultural use under the table, then you could in theory qualify for these accessory uses.
Yeah.
Just-
And
Mark,
I'll add the definition for farm enterprises as well.
Awesome.
Mark, how does Dover apply here?
Dover isn't strictly applicable to farms. When people mention the Dover Amendment, it's not all of Section 3. I mean, for example, there's anti-discrimination clauses for people with disabilities. There's,
Right,
you know, so
right.
the things I consider to be Dover right now would be churches, schools, and childcare facilities. The possibility of solar energy systems joining them, depending
Mhm.
upon how all that plays out.
Right.
But agriculture
You don't need
can
to
be
speak that into
it
being. You can
can
just
be
leave that
regulated.
alone. Uh, Okay, so I think we're in I'm not hearing any opposition to putting in these new agricultural definitions or the accessory uses.
Who's town council in your town?
KP Law.
They're also in Westport, so this will be very familiar to them.
So we're done with that one.
And what else was there? Corner clearance?
Mhm.
Did somebody put that up?
I'll continue to try to be useful.
Right.
I don't necessarily object to it. Is this one of those where it makes sense to have a picture, or am I overly simplistic?
I
I
would-
think
I'd like a picture. Because I'm not sure what that 35 feet looks like rounding the corner.
We had this come up in a meeting just a few months ago, our old bylaw, Paul, concerning the feuding neighbors. And I had to draw it out, sketch it out on a piece of paper just to make sense of what the provision said.
But Tom, you'll note this won't work there because they're on a straightaway with just a bad sight line.
Yeah.
This is referring to a corner of a street.
Yes, you're right. You're right. It was not a corner. Correct.
So I, you know, to the
It
I
wouldn't
don't
help
know.
that one, but
No, but it raises the question, do we want to change it so that it helps that one, including street corners?
I'm also kind of thinking of the Grove where a lot of the lots are 50 feet wide and a 35-foot clearance is more than halfway across the lot.
Also a good point. Yep.
Like there's no way it could comply for those lots. For a lot of them. I like the idea, but I just don't know what 35 feet looks like. That's the big thing there.
feet distance.
I mean, this is more like if a car was driving and coming around a corner, like this the sort of visibility you'd need. But if you're coming to a stop at a corner, like that 35 feet of vision is quite far, maybe like 10 feet max. How wide is a sidewalk really? Like 5 to 10 feet. So I think a lot of people would have to get rid of bushes.
Well, you got to think of it in terms of,
Well,
So
they
the-
just have to trim them. They don't have to get rid of them.
Yeah.
hang on, let's see if
So
this works.
speeds would have an effect on this,
Yeah.
but we're not going to go there, but
There's,
I'm
when
still
you're
trying to
sitting,
figure out the third side. Yeah.
when you're sitting in your car,
Mhm.
they're not all the same, but I think the traffic engineers use something like 3.5, or your eye level is 3.5 or 4 feet above the curb level.
right.
So the idea is to keep it trimmed. Just today on the corner of my neighborhood, this wild bushy fence line was trimmed, and it makes a huge difference. I could not see oncoming traffic from a stop sign just beyond the yard.
Yeah. I have a fence in my hood that goes right up to a collector road. And I always hope every time I go out there, I'm like, I hope a cyclist isn't going the wrong way.
Right.
I think given the amount of small lots in some parts of town, 35 feet seems far.
But what if we said up to 35 feet? Or a range of some sort?
I mean,
No,
So this is saying, sorry,
so basically if you go at the corner or where the two curb cuts would intersect and you go back 35 feet onto the lot in each direction, you have a triangle that you can't put stuff in.
it's actually, isn't it a triangle with a curved side? Because 30 feet, you're going to make the third line is going to be a curve,
It's a
right?
straight line. Third side's a straight line. So
Which-
it's a triangle with the curb at the right angle, basically.
Yep. 35 feet from the point, from the intersection.
So each side is 35 feet. Yeah. And then you draw the line connecting the two endpoints of the 35 feet.
I thought it was a 35-foot radius. I get it. I see.
Yeah. That's far.
It is. It's a big distance.
I would be more comfortable with something enforceable for like a sidewalk, like 5 feet, maybe. I don't know what beyond that. The end of my road, you have to come to a complete stop and creep out. I got a big fence on one side and bushes on the other, but I still can't imagine what they'd be giving up to cut back all of that.
Yeah, doesn't this mean there can be no corner fence on a corner lot?
It would have to be short.
Well, would have to be,
Under 2.5 feet.
yeah. I mean, aren't there a lot of lots right now that have on corners that have fences that are normal size fences?
I
I think-
assume
I-
so.
I think I can think of one at the end of Freeman. There's stockade fence on either side, but neither one of them go to 140. They don't extend that far. They're set further back into the yard. And I can
There's-
think of like kind of post and rail fences. Those aren't really going to be problematic,
Well,
even if they went right up to the road. It
But
depends
we
on the
don't
type
give an
of-
exception for that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it
We
just.
give exceptions for poles, posts, and streetlights and utility services and tree trunks. We don't list fences as an exception, so.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's a brick wall or if it's a chain link fence.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, right. Post and rail fence includes the post, but this doesn't excuse the
rail.
horizontal rails, right?
Yeah.
And doesn't give any measurements or degree of obstruction or anything.
Yeah. For example, I live off of Shelley. There are just absolutely massive oak trees on the corners of both corners of the end of Shelley going out onto Oak. So you know, kind of like what Steve said, you kind of have to slow down before you get to the trees so that you can see both directions, and then hope somebody is not speeding fast enough that they don't come around the corner and clip you by the time you get around the corner. And they're massive. They're easily 5 feet across. So, you know, where it says trunks of bare of leaves are great, but if it's 5 feet across, you're screwed.
What would we, looking at these as two separate entries, the visibility requirements top section on its own doesn't necessarily seem too crazy. I have a hard time, we're saying in a district, don't put anything that obstructs the vision, the corner visibility space, and then we're defining it below. So is there, am I trying to be too broad and say within visibility space required for public safety and not define it and leave that at the discretion of enforcing authorities? And not trying to define it, or is that
I
too?
think that's dangerous, but
I feel like that would only be for something that was like an obvious like danger. Like it would have to be something falling in the road or something like,
Yes.
yeah, like that.
That
I'm
is
fine.
that is the bare minimum of what we would need to have for this.
I'm okay.
And the visibility space corner, if we wanted to put something like 5 feet instead of 35 feet, or a percentage of the lot, or
It seems reasonable to give people room to step to the side when a car is coming. But beyond that, I don't know.
could we say 35 feet and or 10% of the lot line length, whichever is shorter? So if you get a 50-foot lot line, you get 5 feet. If you get a 500-foot lot line, you get 35 feet.
I guess that doesn't seem terrible.
That-
But again, the enforcement and for what degree of stuff, and if we enforce one person's fence and not another,
Oh yeah,
like
it's challenging. It's Yeah.
One question I have is, when does this come to play? Could be subdivision approval, potentially site plan. I guess ZBA if they're, I guess, some sort of request
be
to
anything.
expand, I guess.
Right.
It probably comes into play as a matter of enforcement more often than anything else.
Yeah, that's where I'm going with this is,
It's not going to affect new construction or added construction, right? Unless it's a fence.
Yeah, you wouldn't pick it up unless it tripped a site plan threshold.
right.
Or somebody complained.
Yeah, that's enforcement.
That's the problem. Is that it would get into selective enforcement and yeah.
Yeah, but like, like the dangerous situation on my corner here was getting to the point where the bushes were blocking the view of the stop sign, and you only had 75, 80 feet, 100 feet to deal with a car that was accelerating coming off that stop sign. So I'm sure I would have dropped a dime, and that wouldn't have been a bad thing.
I do have, like I said, the same situation at the end of the road. I got to come to a creeping stop and just barely make my way out. But
Yeah.
I would hate to have to call enforcement on the neighbors and be the one to have like some bushes and a fence. That's a tough sell, I think.
Well, the beauty of it is that somebody must have, I mean, maybe they did their annual July trimming as a result of serendipity, but maybe somebody whispered in their ear too. And tonight it's better.
Yeah, I mean,
Is this something that we want to have in this, that we want or need to have in this bylaw rewrite, or something that we would save for a supplemental ad?
This is secondary to me, but I like the idea if it can be revisited or anybody wants to add to it.
Let me look for some clearer ordinances or bylaws that don't create the
Yeah.
gymnastic here. Let me poke
Right now,
around.
the visibility space is really large for some of the areas in town. I think and the fact that it prohibits like a standard fence
Right.
is the challenge. Those are the two pieces that we're struggling with now, is that somebody can't have a chain link fence around their property right now, the way this is written on a corner lot, even though that's not really a visibility danger.
Or a parking space.
Well, parking space has a car, so it's a visibility problem.
Right, but a lot of the lots
Yeah.
are, but that 35 foot thing makes a parking spot on a 50-foot lot. Not really. It's pretty hard.
Yeah.
Do we know how many households now might be in violation of this standard? Fences on a corner.
I assume we have no idea.
I wouldn't imagine
accurate number.
anyone would know. The other thing, I look at this and, of course, I'm not from there, but I also realize we don't have, here to say we don't have that many intersections. We have long winding roads without many intersections. We really don't have that many corner lots, considering our growth patterns and our road network. Certainly we want to make sure where we do have it, that we have good distances. But if there's a way to reduce the number, if that makes people happy, we should do that.
I'd be comfortable with a reduced number and just like a wording that changes it, like no solid tall barriers, but like a small fence that's like, you got to allow see-through fences and stuff. I can't see how that's going to be tough to enforce.
So
I mean,
not needed for now.
Okay.
How transparent is, is transparent the right word, but you can't see through a privacy fence, but you can see through a chain link.
Yeah, it's
As written, this would mean nobody on a corner lot could erect a fence closer than 35 feet from the corner.
More than
Yes.
2.5 feet tall.
Both
Yeah.
houses at
which means
the-
nobody can fence in the dog.
Right.
Yeah, it's too much. And the fence, if they did, has to like cut across in a diagonal way. It'd be very weird.
That would look very, yeah.
But most people don't fence in their front yard for their dog, do they? It's the backyard usually,
Yeah,
side and back.
I don't know.
If you're on a corner, that means the side yard.
So
Yeah.
both houses at the end of Freeman on 140, both have stockade fences that go,
Oh yeah, those
They're
guys.
both-
Yeah.
yes, they're both 8 feet tall. Can't see through them, and they are significantly closer than 35 feet to the road. They're not abutting the
But
road.
you can see. Yeah.
You can totally see, but if we enacted this, it would be a violation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
I'm
unless
trying
the
not to
building permit for the
overreact
8-foot
to how
foot
town.
fence, that's illegal anyway.
I'm trying not to overreact to how this will go down at a meeting, but I feel like this is one of those torches and pitchforks moments.
Probably not
Yeah.
worth it.
No.
Fair enough,
Yeah.
fair enough. All right, want to try the use table really quickly?
Let's do it.
So I did just last week in Wakefield, which is operating on their same, they're a little ahead of you, but I finished the second draft there and we did the stakeholder meeting. And what I prepared for them was a new, old, major, minor change cheat sheet. I try to keep it to one piece of paper, 2 sides all together. And
Also known as the I didn't bother to read everything, but I at least read the big stuff cheat sheet.
yeah, exactly. Because that's all I can hope for really at a town meeting anyway. Knowing that, of course, all of us will have read it in its complete detail. So, and then I go section by section. So section 1 obviously doesn't have much to talk about. Section 2, unless you're adding or subtracting a district. And then, you know, as it gets more detailed, we get into the nonconformity stuff. That's always going to require a pep talk. And then I can prepare that in advance of the stakeholders meeting. And then I think we used the clean copy, not the coded copy. And of course, anybody who wants to see what's changed can always get the coded copy. I'm assuming, Paul, that it's online if you want to look at it.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So I find the coded version to be a distraction at a big stakes public meeting, including the public hearing and or town meeting. So I try to just refer people to the coded version, but make them get used to using the clean version. And so what I did with the use, if we can put it up,
Oh, I'm still sharing the other one, aren't I? New use table. There we go.
you got it? Okay, so I'm gonna hit the highlights as we go through this. I don't know why you would still want a tourist home, but I restored that.
We have some.
Okay, fair enough. There's the new entry for senior housing facility.
And we're all the PBs again are special permit. Is that
At the planning board.
and PA?
PA shouldn't be in,
Right here?
that should be PB.
Okay. You want to change that on your copy?
Got it.
So I know we kept tourist home. We previously did not have a definition of rooming house. This is putting one in here.
Yeah, I disagree with that being added
And-
to the tourist home.
I'm gonna just
Sorry.
suggest maybe we don't want to add it at all, given the looking to avoid pitchforks. Given what happened on the West Main Street application,
Yeah.
I don't think Norton has the type of infrastructure that makes sense for a rooming house. Generally, with a rooming house, you want a close proximity, walking distance to public transportation, amenities, food, entertainment, bars, a more city-like environment, something with a more vibrant downtown area.
I agree. If I could suggest that, I said it should be lodging or boarding establishment, hotel, motel. Like we have that def for hotel, motel. We should add it there, I think. The big argument was that a tourist home is out of a single family residence, like a bed and breakfast.
Yeah,
And that's what the definition says.
yeah.
Yeah,
Somewhere
there
in the new
there is no
definition,
new
there's
definition, I don't think, is there?
No, it's not
it's
colored
under
yellow.
lodging. There is.
Tourist home is under tourist home in the back.
I know I read a whole lodging
see that?
something else. There's a lodging house and a lodging unit that have been added to the definition.
So here's what we have for tourist home. Right here,
Yeah,
which is the same thing we have. And then the ones that you're referring to are added in L here. But we're not allowing them. Well, we're including lodging house and lodging unit. But this is just you're saying a unit within a building. We're not necessarily allowing the use. The question is, Laura, your question is that this definition is opening up that slippery slope?
Yes, we did not previously have a definition for rooming house, so we have the ability to say they're not allowed. And I'm asking the question, is Norton the type of town in which a rooming house fits?
I would say no in most circumstances. But
Are you-
does anybody disagree that a lodging or boarding house without taking place in a single family home, a standalone lodging or boarding establishment, is a hotel or a motel? Those are the same things.
I don't think
Wow.
they're hotel. I don't think they're hotel.
No.
I think they're
No.
boarding houses, not hotels or motels,
I would
So-
call a lodging house a rooming house,
or a boarding house.
correct?
In what ways are they different from a hotel or a motel? That would be like,
Well, if you look at the definition for hotel or motel, you've got it's at the top of the page. There is a more precise definition for a hotel. A hotel is a place where rooms are for rent, generally on a short-term basis, in which all rooms are accessed through a main door and not through individual doors on balconies or stairwells. And a motel has access to each room from the exterior. That's the
yes,
chief,
but
that's the chief difference.
those are a lodging or boarding house is either a hotel or a hotel style establishment, right?
I see it isn't the difference that a hotel motel, it says that each unit has its own, where was that? Independent. This says cooking facilities.
Right, but we're not talking about the difference between hotel and motel.
You
In
understand?
our uses, we have hotel, motel one category.
Mhm.
What we're talking about is a rooming house in that same category as hotel and a motel? Does
No.
it fit in that category? For what reason does it not? It's individual units rented out for a short period of time. It's not a multifamily apartment building, so it's not long term. The extended stay is a hotel that does somewhat longer term rentals. They are
Hotel,
Let me simplify this here. So I'm going to share back the original the use table here. Should we just remove rooming house from this use table line?
Yes.
Say
Yes.
tourist home,
yes,
done.
done.
If you want to, if you're a tourist home, you fall here. If you're not, then you're looking at something that is in the use tables or falls under hotel motel.
Well, I think we also need to strike lodging house, the definition of that, and probably lodging unit, since that seems to be associated with it.
So
A hotel motel is a lodging establishment. It is different than a lodging house.
I agree.
So, okay. So Steve, does that answer your concern?
I mean, I'm totally fine with removing, like just striking out. But again, if somebody comes with a boarding facility, what category will that fall under for us?
We
Well,
need to
Tourist
define
home,
it.
a
We need to
hotel, or a
define it.
motel.
Well, so
If it
then you
fits
agree
under
that it falls
existing,
hotel and motel, then? Like that's
well,
what
if it fits the definitions for the other uses, then they can do it. If it doesn't fit any use, then it's not allowed.
so that's why I just figured out, like,
Yeah, that's,
sure.
Isn't the difference that a hotel motel has to have an independent connected, bathroom? Whereas a rooming house, you can have just rooms and there can be a shared bathroom for 6 or 10 rooms.
oh, there's some grand old hotels though that didn't have their own bathroom.
Yeah.
bed and breakfast, same thing, yeah.
The Balsams, the Weekapaug Inn before it was remade, they're all over the place, and they're clearly hotels.
Okay. I mean, I'm fine just striking words off. That's not a problem.
But we're gonna cross out rooming house.
And
Take
then-
out the definitions of lodging unit and lodging house.
Yeah.
That
strike
is
it all.
that's the request, yes.
Okay, got it. All right, so in the community facilities, the only thing I really questioned was where essential services fits with regard to public uses. So essential services, as I understand them from Section 3 of the Act, is basically a public, it's a monopoly or a public service corporation. So this would include water tanks, telephone exchanges. It doesn't include cell phone towers. That's a DPU understanding.
Yeah.
But I think we all get a picture for what it is. You don't really need to say. I mean, I probably think it's pretty gutsy of you to say federal, state, or county buildings or uses special permit, because the supremacy clause trumps that. So maybe that should just come out. That's kind of a useless line item there. You can't stop a post office. You can't stop an authority like the MBTA. You can't stop the county from putting a prison there if they want to.
To live dangerously. No, I'm just kidding.
So, if these buildings are decommissioned, you can regulate them upon decommissioning. A Concord medium security prison has been decommissioned as of last weekend.
Right, but it'll be triggered into use.
Yeah, I don't
Right.
know that it'll be an essential government service, which is what the supremacy clause is all about.
I would say eliminate it.
Are there essential services that might be municipal level? Not,
Definitely, yeah. It's the next one. It's number 5 that I'm concerned with.
Ah.
I think I'd just take it out. I think the attorney general might even flag that.
Okay, so number 5, the federal, state, and county buildings.
Yeah.
Okay, so we just assume that goes under number 4.
I
Under
think you
essential
can,
services.
yeah, whether or not they're, if they perform an essential government function and they are a higher level of government, there's a supremacy concept here that they don't need to talk to you about what they want to do. And that would apply to everything from a transfer station run by the county to a prison run by the federal government in Devon's.
But, okay, and this is showing that the planning board would need to issue a special permit.
I think they probably would thumb their nose at you.
Yeah, so take out 5 is what the suggestion is, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
I'm talking about number 4.
Right.
Four is more of a game. So these are things that are sometimes regulated by DPU or DTE, and those two agencies will entertain applications in which they say Norton's given us a hard time before, and we don't want to waste time or money this time, so we want you to just preclude local action. But until that happens, I think putting them on special permit is the right thing to do, because it brings them to
Okay.
the table, and
Sure.
you might not get into a fight. You might get into a meeting of the minds.
It seems reasonable.
Okay, over on agriculture, I tried to distinguish between these things, particularly when you get down to 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. If you say a farm, an orchard, a nursery, a greenhouse, or a tree farm, all of those, if they're in category 1, are allowed. So I'm assuming you mean those that are not in category 1, which is less than 5 acres, are not qualified acres. And so I've added those words of caveat there. And then remember that there is a stand, a farm stand allowance in section 3, which has to do with the sale of produce or product grown on the premises and the ability of the proprietor to have a protected farm stand under section 3. So it's a long section, but it literally says, these are the kinds of things that we will protect commodity-wise if certain percentage is grown on the farm or on other land of the farmer and brought to this farm. And you can't, that's a protected farm stand. You can't do it. I don't see the reason to call it out, because you'll entertain anybody with zucchini to spare.
I'll take it.
Okay.
And the question that you have under point 2,
Yeah, what's minor agriculture?
I'm not sure. Steve, is that pulled from your definitions, or is that something that we should strike?
No, minor agriculture is supposed to, I think it's just everything that's not animals. I think it's just like if you have a garden or something like that. It's not supposed to be large scale operations. It's not mine. I didn't add
If
it.
that's the case, I think we can just take that out.
Yeah.
Because it would, if it's not 5 acres or too qualified, it seems that by
Saying it would be an
inference,
accessory use, essentially.
it's
Yeah.
inference, it's minor agriculture, so. I mean,
Okay.
think of number 1 as major agriculture and think of everything else as minor agriculture.
Okay. So we've removed your question.
Yep, got it. Indoor, outdoor recreational uses, I don't think I had, just one thing about, I had to know whether a fee
Before we
is
move
charged or
on,
not.
before we move on, for when we get into specifying the types of animals,
Yeah,
are we, or do we get in any hot water with that, or are we fine to say whatever we want?
no, you can discriminate against animals, that's fine.
Okay.
You can't
Should we-
discriminate against people, but not.
Should we be
animals.
careful about the ag definitions that we added, because swine is listed in agricultural?
It is, and if you were in number 1 and you had
Oh,
swine or
you would-
rabbits, you couldn't stop it.
Got it.
There's been an
Okay.
interesting couple of cases from the town of Oxford in which somebody is trying to raise bearded dragons. It was just reviewed by the appeals court. They argued it was protected agriculture. They argued it was a home occupation, and they argued that it was a customary pet. I mean, the scale of this operation was pretty scary. And the appeals court agreed with the land court and said no, no, and no. So,
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we have no issues discriminating against animals, for lack of a better term. But
no,
if there,
they're very understanding.
if there's any adjustments to these that we want to suggest, now might be the time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or, you know,
I know when we tweaked what is now number 6. Oh, wait a second. I feel like, did we change the uses for 6 now?
I don't recall changing it.
Oh, no, never mind. It's 5 that I'm thinking about, where you can have some certain rabbits or some hens, but no roosters for personal use. And now we have it yes in residential. Okay. When did we make? I want to say that was 7 or 8 years ago we made that change.
Could
Okay.
I add to that? Because it only says rabbits and like poultry, can we define it as just domestic species defined by 321 CMR 9? That's the entire list of domestic species under Massachusetts law. So that covers all of it that's allowed.
Can you give me
Can
the
we-
CMR? Give me the CMR again.
It's 321 CMR 9. And that's the list of domestic species.
Yeah.
And that just refers to the Massachusetts list. We don't have to say which ones.
You're thinking for point number 6?
I'm thinking, yeah, for personal use.
Okay. Yeah. I would just say 5, I believe the point was it was originally special permit everywhere. And we basically said, you don't need a special permit as long as you don't have roosters, because we're gonna get complaints.
I also don't know about the property size thing because you can keep
Yeah.
rabbits on a pretty small plot of property,
Yeah.
especially if it's not a large farming operation.
Yeah. There's no minimum here. So
Okay.
yeah, it's just you're under the 2 qualified acres. Yeah.
Yeah, and then for farming, can we just do farming and agriculture defined by Mass General Law 128 1A and just do a special permit across the board? And then just if it qualifies, they just are allowed by right. Instead of separating it into a bunch of different categories, we can just say everywhere farming and agriculture is allowed by special permit. And if you are at the 2 to 5
Yeah.
acres, whatever.
I don't know if I like that. I feel like I don't want to put up red tape where it doesn't need to be there.
Is it less red tape or more? Like, I don't know. Dividing it
don't
up
know.
into more categories, kind of.
I don't know.
Well, what does 128 1A include within the definition? I don't have enough.
It's pretty much the full definition of agriculture like you sent to us. Defines farming and agriculture in Massachusetts. General law. Bringing it up.
Me too.
Do you want me to
Farming
stop
or
sharing?
agriculture shall include farming in all of its branches and the cultivation and tillage of soil, dairying, the production, cultivation, growing, and harvesting of any agriculture, aquaculture, floriculture, or horticultural commodities, the growing and harvesting of forest products upon forest land, the raising of livestock, including horses, the keeping of horses as a commercial enterprise, the keeping and raising of poultry, swine, cattle, and other domesticated animals used for food purposes, bees, fur-bearing animals, and any forestry or lumbering operations performed by a farmer who is hereby defined as one engaged in agricultural or farming as herein defined, or on a farm as an incident to or in conjunction with the farming operations, including preparations for market, delivery to storage, or to market, or to carriers for transport to market. Jesus.
The same as the Westport first paragraph.
That's the whole definition. So
But I think what it comes down to is, do you want to encourage people who want to raise swine on 1.34 acres to be able to apply for a special permit?
I think if they're applying for a special permit, we can judge that individually. I'm not, I mean, that's the whole point of the special permit, I guess. We could let somebody raise a pig if they're not planning on raising 100 pigs.
Well, but you wouldn't allow somebody with an auto body shop to have a special permit in a residence district, even if they were only intending to fix 12 cars and not 1,000. So at some point, the use just speaks for itself as being inappropriate, rather than subjecting the neighbors to have to go to the barricades because somebody's got a crazy idea.
Well, I mean, again, you'd have to say that one neighbor with a large property on one side of you could have a farm, and one neighbor on the other side of you with a slightly smaller property can't. You could still be the neighbor in the middle. You're in the same district.
Okay. So right now, Mark, just to restate, the only thing that's changed about this section is the addition of those yellow clarifying statements for 2 through 6.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the removal of minor agriculture, which we spoke to already.
Yep.
I feel like if we're going to do Steve, to your point, more of a sweeping change to how we look at agricultural uses, I feel like that's something maybe we'd look at differently rather than part of this process again. I don't know. Maybe I'm overreacting to some of the comments I've seen online over the past couple of weeks.
Okay.
You want to bring me into the loop on that?
There's been some discussions about farming and how people feel about farmers and people who own farmland and things like that.
Particular to Norton?
Yes, yes. Since those farmers tend to have significant amounts of land, which ties into taxes and all sorts of fun stuff.
And how do you think the agribusiness, agri-entertainment, agritourism stuff will fit into that?
Oh, well, those would in theory be beneficial. This is, I don't know if it's beneficial or not.
Yeah.
We have one vegetable farm in town. We are not overrun with farms by any means.
You got the Carvalhos too, right?
That's the vegetable farm.
Oh, you're talking about them? Okay.
I mean, that's it. We have a couple horse farms, but that's,
Yeah.
it's very minor.
Yeah. Okay.
But yes, there is the assertion that anybody that is into farming to some degree must be a backwater hick of some sort that doesn't want to participate in town. That is the but there's a lot of going on online.
Yeah. I've tried to tune it out, but
yeah.
So what do we have objections to leaving what is existing alone and coming back to it at a certain later date?
Coming back to it sounds good.
Okay.
All right, I'm on D. And as I was beginning to say, I added whether a fee is charged or not, just so that it's clear that this applies to commercial and non-commercial, not for profit facilities.
Okay.
Yeah. Does Massachusetts part? Well, we don't have any, so never mind. But I assume they charge for. I believe they charge for entry into the parks
or parking or both
or parking.
Yeah, I think they do.
Well, a lot of the Mass State parks should have a parking, and then once you pay to park, then you're there. So it's
Yeah.
treated as the same thing, but it's more enforceable. Okay.
Um,
I
okay.
yeah, I rewrote that. I mean, if anybody wants to, whatever, but it's
Which one?
I wrote passive outdoor recreational activities incidental to the natural landscape in which the activity occurs and can be accommodated with minimal change to the area, topography, or resources and do not require developed facilities. I don't know if that,
Yeah.
but I took out the non-commercial part. Like could be commercial. I don't know. Like Borderland charges a fee when you enter. That's technically commercial, right?
Yeah.
Well, Mass Audubon, for example, charges a fee.
Yeah.
I
I don't know if
represent Berkshire Natural Resources. They do not charge a fee. So we got trapped in this fee versus no fee in a town warrant article change. At the last minute, Matt's Audubon was calling up and saying, well, you've just shot us in the foot. So whether a fee is charged or not was the way out of it.
Yeah. I don't know if, Steve, to your definition, I don't know if is putting up like a notice board, does that count as development, or is putting up a small changing room by a beach count as development? So I wonder if that
I think
ask more questions that it answers.
I think the idea of do not require developed facilities, maybe as opposed to it doesn't necessarily prevent or develop like some minor things there, accessories or amenities, but like it doesn't necessarily need a giant building. A beach doesn't need a building. A hiking path doesn't necessarily need a building.
But
No,
then when
but
they propose it, we say you don't need it. And then if you say, no, I want it, then, well, then you don't belong in this use.
yeah, Berkshire Natural Resources at the site I'm litigating for them which is Hollow Fields in Richmond, has a barn and a stockade fence around the parking area. And, we've gotten into arguments about what can be kept in the barn, whether, the times people can access the barn on the staff. So it's all, anything that's possible to argue about is right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't mind the language as is. Yeah.
And the next one in E, I added medical or dental office or clinic because even though they're not broken out as different regulations, I mean, a medical office is a different thing than a business office. When you go, you wait in line for 8 people in front of you to get addressed, and that doesn't happen usually in a business office. So there's 8 cars in the parking lot while you're waiting. And the parking rate for a medical or dental office is generally 1 per 200, whereas it is 1 per 250 or 300 for a business office.
I
Do
think
we
that's
have that
already
subsequent change in our parking regs later?
Yeah, I mean, right now I just focused on adding it in case you want to change it, but I can.
those are already like that in our uses table, are they not? We already separate medical and dental
No,
offices.
I think it said administrative or professional, which is what I crossed out.
We have 2 office categories and medical and dental office, so that already exists in our uses table.
I put it down here. The retail we've already talked about.
Hold on.
Personal, general, or trade service establishments, those are, something that probably don't require much in the way of different regulations. Personal service establishment would be a hair salon, a nail salon, a barber shop. A general would typically be something like an upholsterer or a computer repair or small appliance repair. And a trade would be anybody in a trade. So again, this is anticipating that at some point in time, you might want to regulate them differently, and each of them has its own definition.
Okay. And is 3 not a new ad? The font's different, so it caught my eye.
I don't think I made that up. The 4 is something that was somewhere else and I pulled it into here.
Okay.
I think it was part of a larger category that I moved into here.
Okay.
Fast food is a new category under restaurant uses. Somebody suggested brewery or winery. That's a new category as well. Under motor vehicles, motor vehicle light service is what today most people call a combo. So it's gas, convenience, and food, usually donuts. And no real significant repairs being conducted on the premises. So then there are these two things that sort of fight each other in the existing bylaw. One is the scratch out, and the other one is auto body repair, paint, soldering, or welding shop. And that's the one as between the two that I kept. But you might want to reconcile the no and the yes in the VC district and the no and the yes in the commercial district.
Yeah,
Where is engine repair?
I think it would be
Not in there. Yeah.
it would be motor vehicle repair in the scratch out.
I personally, I kept gasoline filling service station. I don't know about the changing the name on it because it specifies specifically that it's a gas station. I don't know if that matters, but for the repair, I kind of just did trade service and repair shops, including auto repair, provided the work is done in an enclosed building and there's no exterior storage of wrecked cars, equipment, or materials. Like I'm just borrowing from our own terminology. I mean, I think mechanics is a trade service of some degree, much like HVAC or plumber or welder. Would it make sense to include that as a separate repair shop that's not a gas station service station? Again, like I don't mind the idea of somebody having a 1 or 2 bay garage repair shop in a smaller neighborhood. It doesn't, or not everything is a large facility. I think the welding, soldering, industrial use was more for like a car manufacturer almost, or like a large scale repair facility for something larger than just a one-off mechanic.
Yeah. I think it speaks more to just the. Yeah, it's. Yeah, I don't know.
All right, so let's
So
talk
the
about high.
existing question is that there are 2 definitions that we feel are fighting, that Mark, you feel are fighting each other.
They certainly
So-
overlap. Yeah.
So the bottom one is the cross out was repair and service shops, including auto repair, correct?
Yeah.
And then the top one that's being fought is the motor vehicle repair. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't
So
I don't know about getting rid of the auto body repair shops. That seems like a weird.
I agree. And I'm thinking of high tech automotive, which does everything. It does body repair, it does welding, it does inspections, it does engine repair. And we're saying that can only go in industrial. They're not in an industrial zone.
And as far as auto repair and trade services, not everything's engine work. I could see somebody doing upholstery in a car or installing radios or electronics. Not everything is a large facility. That is, there is a trade like
Yeah.
across.
Yeah, and you have gas stations with repair shops. They might have one bay.
Right.
See some in Attleboro.
Yeah, the places where you get your inspections done
Like I
or
said,
a quick oil change.
is anybody opposed to the idea of doing trade services and repair shops with the long definition I sort of said?
I mean, because we talked about trade services in the previous section, I feel like we're
So
having
maybe
them
we-
in the separate table is helpful because it's all the motor vehicle related uses.
So maybe
I
in
would
retail and
almost,
service, sorry,
I was gonna say, I would almost want to put / gas station in the one motor vehicle light service, as in like, this is the we use for a gas station / light service one. And then the second one would be, I think you can have one definition that we feel covers all of these uses. And I would think I would use the top set of allowances, meaning no, no, yes, no, yes, yes.
I agree.
However we want to resolve the definitional squabble between them, it's, if it's not a motor vehicle light service, it's auto body repair, blah, 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 blah. And here's where you can go. We don't need to get into whether you're doing engine or paint or it's not the, I got an oil change and an inspection sticker, you're going in the second line.
Right, but the variety of whether you're getting your engine work or your car seat or paint or whatever, that just is general trades. Those are the actual labor trades. Like I went to a trade school and did auto body, the same as I did metal fabrication. Like,
Right.
so I could see a welder doing automotive work in his garage. But he's not a
Yeah.
gas station.
So I think
No,
the way
I
of
was like
getting around it
saying
then,
gas station, light service is here. Everything else is this top row here.
and to Steve's point, in the retail one, just change number 2 to say non-auto trade services, and then everything else goes into motor vehicle related uses.
So right here,
So personal general,
F.
non-auto trade services.
I separated personal service establishments from trade services. Personal services like a barber or a beautician or something like that. Trade services, I considered like a handyman, a repair shop, like somebody actually where you would bring something for repair, an appliance center that you get fixed. And that seems similar to fixing a vehicle of some sort.
Right, but we have an entire category just for motor vehicle. We should keep like with like.
Right, but I'm saying trade services are dislike a barber.
Okay.
Yeah, the point
So
today is
what
that you want
changes
to
to the
regulate
zoning would you prefer?
I think if you're gonna get into that, you should break them out. They should each be their own line item, because I don't know that you do regulate them today the same. If you want to
Okay.
regulate them differently, that's the reason to break them out into separate line items.
So Steve, your suggestion is personal or general service establishment, trade service establishment, new line. Or trade service, non-auto trade service establishment.
I would go that way, but my suggestion was personal service establishment is different than trade, but the trade services is essentially like an HVAC or a plumber or something. They're doing labor work that is similar to an automotive garage. That's why I categorize them together. You would put an HVAC company near an automotive building, but you really don't want to put it necessarily between a magazine shop and a beauty salon. They don't necessarily fit in the same spot. That's why, like,
Well,
I mean, a
look at
plumbing
the,
company might have vans and all that equipment and everything.
So look at the strip mall where across from Goat, you've got a motorcycle place, a computer repair shop, a sun tanning establishment, a liquor store, and a cigar shop. I mean, that's all of it right there in one tiny little strip mall.
Okay, well, you said motorcycles. Can they do repairs there then?
Yeah.
Well, that's a vehicle repair. Like that's what I'm saying. That I am saying that trade services is very similar to a repair shop. And if they do automotive repair right there next to that shop, then that's why I'm saying sort of trade services and auto repair are sort of a category that might be welcomed in a place that not gas stations are.
Okay. The only we're not gas stations are a different line item. So the only difference between the two codes right now is that motor vehicle repair, not light service. So somebody will just assume somebody working on an engine or something is not something that is currently permitted in village center core. Trade services are. That's the only difference right now.
Okay.
So
So do we
Ju-
not want any auto repair in village commercial?
village center
or-
core, not
Oh,
village
village
commercial.
center, that's it.
That's
Okay.
it. That's the only, so in that little downtown area, we don't want, we're fine with a gas station. Or no, we're not fine with a gas
No.
station. That's a no. Is that we don't have those auto service use in village center core. That's the only difference we're talking about between trade service and auto anything.
Okay.
So
So is it like in the village center core, the village like appliance repair would be allowed though?
yes,
Okay.
based on the use table we have now, yes.
Okay.
Because that would be either, we call it, is it a retail or a service use? Probably, maybe it's a retail, then it's allowed in village center core. Or if it's trade services, which I went by,
Yeah,
then it's allowed in village center core. So yes,
You know, as I'm looking at our existing use table, it's retail store, shops, and trade services is lumped together. And I know when we said yes on village center, it was certainly for retail stores and shops. Trade services, I
I think that you have
I would say if we
small
move it
trade
out
service
as
repair facilities all over downtowns everywhere.
sure,
So
I'm-
yeah, there are.
Paul, a seamstress is a trade service. Dressmaker.
I'm sorry.
A dressmaker is a trade
Yeah,
service.
absolutely.
And
Sure.
yeah,
there's no
and they
reason it
belong in
shouldn't be in.
downtown Attleboro just like they'd belong. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll go back to automotive here. I think we have motor vehicle light service, and I would put gas station here just to make it really obvious that this is what we're talking about with a gas station / light service.
Agree.
And then, because I want somebody looking at this and going, where's a gas station? And then we say it would fall under here, and they say, well, we don't trust you because I'm a cynic. And then we have motor vehicle repair involving these list of items, or such as these list of items, and then following this top line here. Unless somebody wants to fight to include it in village center core, which I'm not sure if we really would want. But I think village commercial
But
is
no,
fine. I think
when we
commercial
were
is fine. I
working
think
on it,
industrial is fine.
yeah, we were intentionally not wanting auto-oriented uses in VCC.
I agree.
And we don't have any of them in residential right now. So. Yeah. So that removes your fighting uses mark,
Yep,
and then that's it. And Steve, to your point, if we want to break out trade services into a separate line to regulate it differently, that's, right now they have the same use table. If it's one of those where we want to build in the new line now and use them the same and look at it later, we can do that. Or we can just leave them together.
But yeah, like I don't have to repeat it a bunch of times, but like I said, I feel like the trade services is very similar to automotive repair. I consider
Yeah.
it like labor trades are different than the personal
Yeah,
trades.
no, I hear you, but yeah.
I mean, there's a variety of equipment that's going to be stored on site and everything for the labor
Oh, yeah.
trades that is just drastically different. So
Okay. So maybe if Mark in F, just put trade service as its own row, and we'll keep the same use codes for now.
got it.
Okay. And then we get into miscellaneous commercial uses, and this is where you're gonna show your other links that you sent, Mark, about special entertainment.
You mean adult entertainment?
Yes.
Well, that's in the bylaw. It's
Okay.
probably, it's gotta
Well,
be in section
it-
7.1.
It's the first line in section I, so,
Yeah, so it says C section,
yeah.
but that's 7 point, I'm juggling notes here. Hang on a
We
second.
don't need to go back and forth, sorry.
Yeah, so that would be in section.
Yeah.
And it's always grand to do this speech in front of a town meeting. It's section 7.2.
Okay.
And the changes that are made to accommodate adult uses or adult entertainment are constitutional in nature. So right now, what I found in your bylaw today is a simple regulation that says no adult use shall be located less than 1,000 feet from all other zoning districts. Yikes. And cemeteries and less than 500 feet from other adult uses. So two things. Number one, the paragraphs that you can see in 7.2 are weighty and meaningful. The Supreme Court has ruled that entertainment, basically nudity, is a protected type of speech. And I think one of the great lines from the Supreme Court is, equus wouldn't be equus without the nudity. So it is speech in its most fundamental, artistic speech, perhaps sometimes even political speech. Think of hair. And the Supreme Court has said that it is subject to reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions, but only as to the secondary effects. So the myth behind adult entertainment is that the facilities result in crimes to person, crimes to property. And therefore, you can regulate by either grouping them together, think of the old combat zone in Boston, or by spreading them out, which is what you've attempted to do. But you can't regulate the speech directly. You have to say this section is enacted with the purpose of addressing and mitigating the secondary impacts of adult uses that are adverse to health safety. That's Con Law 101. The second is on the next page, where I've commented in the margin that you must, having acknowledged the value of this speech, provide a reasonable opportunity for it to be spoken. And there's a couple of illustrative cases from Massachusetts. One is from the small town of Tingsboro on the New Hampshire line, Tingsboro zoned for adult entertainment in, I probably don't remember the exact number, but it was 0.08 or 975, less than 1% of Tingsboro, which is a town of more than 10,000 acres, and approximately 10 were zoned for adult entertainment. The industry sued Tingsboro and said that they had blocked the opportunity, and Tingsboro prevailed, but barely. Medford had a similar case in which they zoned 2 city blocks, totaling about 1.25% of the city's area, and they lost. It wasn't enough. So the opportunity doesn't have to be something immediate. It just has to be available in the commercial marketplace. The odd thing is that I know the owner of the land in Tingsboro because I've worked a lot in Tingsboro. His name's Walter Erickson, and no more God-fearing man ever existed on earth. But when he testified at the trial, he said, "Oh yeah, a dollar is a dollar, no problem here." And that was enough to convince the court that Tingsboro was providing a reasonable opportunity. And when I look at what you've got here, the adult use shall be located less than 1,000 feet, not less. No adult use shall be located less than 1,000 feet from all other zoning districts. That means that the enterprise has to exist on a dot 1,000 feet from any other zoning district, all the way around 360 degrees. I'll bet you right now, you don't have that.
I doubt it.
So you're basically
doubt-
doing what Revere did in a case called T&D Video. They zoned a piece of property in the swamp when you go
That's
up
the one you
hill
sent
on
us,
Route-
yeah.
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 And they, what did they end up paying? I don't remember the exact number, but it was $500,000. And these, these guys in the business are not soft-spoken and forgiving. So if they see an opportunity, they'll take it, and why not?
Would it make sense to just say from a residential zone instead of any zone?
Yeah, but somebody still has to check the map. I mean, you basically allow it now in the use table. You allowed it
In industrial.
in industrial. So somebody would literally have to take a compass and start squaring off 1,000-foot circles from various locations in the industrial to see whether or not you ever cross a line of a residence district.
I think we do, even in our largest industrial zone.
Yeah.
Can we, does everybody agree to just lower the distance? Is that a reasonable thing?
Yeah, again,
Yeah.
you gotta take the
And-
time to get it right.
Yeah,
This-
but
this is where
all other zoning.
recodification ends and
Are there-
somebody else's compass
Are there
work
other,
begins.
so in your suggestion, Mark, is that we need to, this isn't something that we can copy from another town. This has to be something that actually makes sense, given Norton and the
Yes.
fact that our zones make 0 sense and are not conjoined in any way, shape, or form in most cases.
Yeah,
So,
you have to do the math.
okay.
And
So,
again, it doesn't need to
And
be,
I would say I'm that
you can't
all
leave
other.
them, you can't leave them land on the other side of the swamp with no access.
Right.
But if you're providing a reasonable amount of land, and even if it's already rented or owned, that's perfectly fine.
I just checked the map and it's essentially where, Jesus, the big food, beverage distributor. Can't think of the name.
Home market.
No, in our industrial park.
Horizon.
Horizon.
Yeah. That's essentially where it would need to go, right around that area. There's
Okay.
not
Yeah.
a ton of it.
There's
so,
two vacant parcels over that way.
okay, well, the vacancy doesn't necessarily need to matter.
No,
So
but it's
it just needs to
potential.
potentially exist there. It doesn't need to exist there now.
No.
But
No.
so if we're going to space them out, I mean, does it make sense to, Paul, I would look to you to try to
Yeah.
see, if we say 500 feet from residential zoning districts, does that work, or are we still not there? And if we're not there, and it's like you have a postage stamp size, then what is the next step? Or is there a way that we would be able to relax it in a way that makes sense?
Yeah,
I-
I
I-
can, this is a
So-
GIS exercise.
Okay.
So we can work on that.
Okay.
I just quick end to it. 1,000 feet gives us a little bubble. 500 feet would give us several decent parcels in the industrial park that could fit.
Yeah, and I would just also say that 1,000 feet from all other zoning districts, I mean, I would probably limit that 1,000 feet from residential.
I
So
agree.
I don't know what we're buffering if it's, between industrial and commercial.
You're assuming there was logic, Paul.
I know,
In the
I'm just
industrial
saying that,
park, it's all residential next to it anyway.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would probably also just caveat that, thinking along the lines of like, I can't think of the name of the street now. In addition to residentially zoned, it should be residentially owned. So South
Residential
Worcester,
principal uses,
Yeah,
zoned or
so
principal uses.
on South Worcester, where you're there, everybody lives in industrial, but it's all single family homes. We've got all these non-conforming.
Worcester or South Washington, both of them? South Washington. has
South
people-
Washington. It is
Both
Washington.
of them
Okay.
do.
Yeah.
But there's no spot if it's with residential houses. If it's from residential zones, we can do it. But residential houses, our industrial zone is littered. All of them have residents right near it
Right.
or within it.
Yeah.
You-
If the answer is it doesn't work, then we cross it off. But
Yeah.
But what
That's
is
the-
considered a reasonable amount of land percentage-wise, and how is that determined?
Well, those are the two cases that we have, and,
Yeah.
I don't.
I'd say if we're less than 1%, we're probably not there.
Well, you're probably, in terms of just raw numbers, you're probably very similar to Tingsboro.
So if you're saying 1%, half a percent,
I can send you the case. It's called DHL versus Town of Tingsboro, and you can take a look
Yeah.
at it.
we're just looking for a guide. We're not looking
I
for a
would say-
number, just a guidepost of directional, like you're at 0.02%. That's obviously nothing.
Yeah.
You're at 5%, that's too much. Just a directional. If we're saying somewhere
I would-
around 1 seems like you're
I
not
think
gonna get
that's-
sued, then
Yeah, I think
Right.
anybody in the business of suing for this kind of negligence would probably not want to spend a lot of money on a 1% town. Assuming that the opportunities were reasonable.
so there we go. Does it need to be exact? No, but it gives us a directional to look at.
Yeah,
So-
we can do an analysis to see what does 1,000 feet do right now. Because it's 1,000 feet from the property line too.
Yeah, there's an.
You're
instruction in
assuming
there on how
logic,
to
Paul.
measure it.
Well,
There's
I
no
mean,
lo-
it says no adult use shall be located less than 1,000 feet. So is that the building or is that the property line where the adult use is?
I would measure it as if it were cannabis. There's been an amendment to the cannabis measurement methodology. But it should, I can send it to you. The AG corrected me in a recent bylaw amendment.
Is it from, I haven't seen the updated cannabis. Is it from the building now?
I can send it to you. I
Okay.
got it wrong in one town, and Margaret Hurley sent me the new amendment, and I'll just send that to you.
Okay,
Yeah, that gives us enough guidance to go on in
Yeah.
this respect. So
And the next one is,
I'm putting the use table back up.
yeah, the body art, same deal. I mean, this is tattoos and piercing for the most part. And until Lamphere versus, I can't remember the town, it was not legal in Massachusetts. You had to go to Hampton Beach or Pawtucket, one of the two. And so for the last 30 or 35 years or so, body art establishments also have First Amendment repercussions, both for the bearer of the art and the artist, him or herself. So you have to, you regulate the finer points of this by Board of Health regulations, which make complete sense. But the
Yeah.
location,
And the
when I
definition of
was
body
working-
art establishment requires a permit from the Board of Health, so that, yeah.
but
Well-
you might not want to just treat it like an ordinary retail. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, some towns allow it. For example, Maynard allows it in a business district or a industrial district. Go figure. But it's the
I'm
same.
very comfortable with it being all the way to village commercial. It doesn't
Yeah.
bother me at all.
Yeah,
Well,
I like it.
when I was working in Fairhaven, this came up, and little different there too, because for some reason in their mixed use, these were not allowed. So we tried to change that recently, but I would, I made a point there that it's like, why do we even need a special permit for that? Because if the Board of Health is regulating it, unless it triggers the 5 or 10,000 square feet or 2,500 for a site plan, what is it that the planning board or, a special permit granting authority is doing? When it seems like really the major aspect of this are the health implications. So
I think there was actually an
I would be okay with these being as of right.
I think the only argument there, Paul, is are we going to get any pushback at town meeting? I think the town would probably be
Do
more
people see
comfortable.
these as havens of riffraff?
Yeah. Just
also
some
known
sort
as
of-
secondary effects.
I'm comfortable with the special permit, although I do agree, personally, that it should be a by right thing. I got tattoos, but body modification can also include scarification, piercings. There's more. There's implants, and they can
Well,
involve actual
It's-
medical procedures that are
it's
going to
also
twice.
But that's not
cosmetic
in-
The
now.
definition actually carves those out separately.
Yeah, but not like cosmetic. So women who have their eyebrows and eyeliner tattooed on, that's body art now.
Yep.
But
And-
I just go, what does the planning board do in addition to the Board of Health? That's my, that's
I don't
my,
disagree with you, but yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I know, but we have to be pragmatic and get it through. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're not,
I-
and we've allowed it in 4 zones, which is not,
Significant.
yeah.
It's a good leap.
It will go easier on us if it's special permit.
I agree. Those of us who have to view the body art after have no First Amendment rights, right, Mark?
No,
I
You're gonna
paid for a
just
lot
deal
of
with it.
tattoos paid
I'll
for a
do
lot
it.
of tattoos in my day, Tom. So
Boy, I sound like an old guy, don't I?
no,
Beauty is in
it's
the eye of the
not me, it's
beholder.
my daughter.
okay.
She comes to visit tomorrow. I'll let you know if there's any update.
Okay.
All right, so wrapping this up, these are things, I left self-storage facility as a blank. Everybody needs a self-storage facility.
I assume it would be here.
Yeah, it could be. I think they're a little bit more passive certainly in their transportation impacts. I mean, normally you would have a warehouse probably at one space every 500 square feet of gross floor area for a self-storage facility. I've permitted 85,000 square foot facilities with 10 to 12 parking spaces. Who goes to this thing?
Yeah. I mean, anything with any kind of scale is going to trigger our kicker anyway.
Yeah.
No.
So, I mean,
You want to
I
just
don't-
match the warehouse line?
I would just leave it with, I don't even see if we want to break it out, great. I'd match warehouse. If we don't, then yeah.
I would just add it to the warehouse.
Yeah,
Well, there is
I
a,
would
there
just
is,
add it to
as long as you make it clear that it's a self-storage facility, because there is an argument in many towns about whether it's actually a warehouse or not. So just
Yeah.
make it an independent entity.
Ours says storage right next to it, so it makes it really hard to fight that definition. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Either
okay.
way, yeah.
All right, and then the last section here, I just cleaned up a couple of remember now with these accessory uses, they don't have to be listed in order to be allowable, but some you want to list. Adult daycare, because I continue to get revenge on Judge Kilborn for a bad decision he made 20 years ago. Family childcare homes, large and small, are both mentioned in the statute that protects childcare facilities. These are unlike childcare facilities out of the home and clearly accessory. The small is 6, large is 10, both include resident participants, and it's next door. So the default position I've always had is yes for small, planning boards, special permit for large. And, if somebody's going to move 10 kids every day next to me and they're going to play in the backyard, I kind of want to have a hearing. Not that I'll object, but I want to have a hearing.
Having lived next to one, I would object
Okay.
years
Well,
ago.
Okay.
Yeah. I had a
Give
client
me
once living
give
next
me
to
trucks before you give me
Yeah,
kids.
yeah. They got into a spat, and the staff at the facility used to send the kids to her kitchen window, and they stood under it and screamed. I have a video, which I'm not supposed to have because you're not supposed to video kids, but my client did, and it was just atrocious. So
You need a remote control for the sprinklers.
there was a parking lot, unfortunately.
Sorry,
Use,
they're aim drug. My fault.
yeah, uses whether on the same lot or same parcel. This is scientific. Accessory uses, I call it the mad scientist exception. And there are actually people who do take advantage of this, and it's mentioned in the statute, so that's why it's there.
Okay.
And then the other one is common driveway, and I think we're still considering a digital electronic billboard as well as an other use. So,
Okay.
all right, so
Um,
I suggest that I think this was great. I think we did a lot of work. We still have the whole bylaw to look at. So you want to pick another day at the end of the month to get the bylaw off the shelf, and then we can schedule the stakeholder meeting?
okay.
Yeah.
End of July is tough for me. I'd rather go into the first couple days of August.
Fine with me. I'm around until the 20th of August.
We have a
Uh,
meeting on the 6th,
Where's
and
my
then what, the
calendar?
20th? Is that?
Let me just
Yep.
grab my calendar.
Looks
I thought
like
I
it.
had
Yeah, the 20th.
So,
We're actually on the
So the
30th of
13th
July
is
too.
open.
I need to grab my calendar. I'll be right back.
yeah. So if we're looking August 13th, when Mark gets back.
Not good here, but
Okay.
Hey,
So-
BA, is my calendar on the counter? Oh, I got it. Never mind.
How about the 8th?
Of August?
The Thursday, is that what you're?
Yeah,
I'm good that day.
Because I'm-
The 8th.
Thursday, August the 8th?
I just booked something with Berkeley yesterday.
Okay.
How about the I can do the 5th, 6th, or 7th.
Well, the 6th, we have a meeting. And the 5th, I'll be traveling. Not that I need to be here, but
What about the next week, the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th?
13, 14, no good. Otherwise good.
12th?
August the 12th.
That's more than a month away. Is that what we're looking to do?
Well, raise your hands if you read the whole 159 pages. I don't blame you.
So-
It's summertime.
So if the next opportunity, assuming next week is too crazy, and we already have a
I'm
MBTA
gone.
meeting next
I
week,
leave
so
on, I leave
no.
on the 11th and I'm back on the 21st. So
Okay, so the next week is the 22nd. I know
could-
I'm not available that whole week.
okay,
All right.
29th, week of the 29th.
29, 30, 31, I'm probably going to be busy. I could try the 29th. See
What about the 1st?
that works.
I can do the 1st.
I could do the 1st.
Sounds like that's the pencil date.
Okay,
Okay.
All I had to do was go one by one.
and we will just do the main bylaw that night. So
Okay,
make your notes early and often, and what I'm gonna do is go section by section, treat it like the budget at town meeting. Anybody wanna hold something, shout it out.
okay. And then, Paul, do you want to check with select board and I'm not sure how we do a clearinghouse for what days work for all those different boards.
At that point, we might as well wait till after Labor Day. So that,
Okay.
so that everybody's back.
Maybe just try and pencil something in or get people's ears for September with select board. I'll say conservation. Who else?
FinCom.
FinCom.
FinCom. Will they have a new board by then? I forget when their
I
term
think
ends.
there's an appointment tomorrow night, Thursday night at select board, I think.
But their term actually ends.
Yeah, July
Okay.
1st is the start of their new term.
Okay. So we'd have select board, FinCom, conservation, anybody else? I would just say, send them a note, say, we've been going through this process over the past 4 months or whatever, how long it's been. We want to bring in a number of stakeholders from your board.
Yep.
Please figure out who wants to join and what dates they may or may not be available in early September. Whoever does not speak doesn't get to pick a date. And can join whenever it works for us or not.
Yeah, and if we're gonna schedule something in September, Labor Day is the 2nd, and I'm out most of that week. I'm back on Friday, but that doesn't count. So we would do something for the stakeholders the week of the 9th, if that's available to you folks.
In theory, yeah, I would probably have stayed away from Labor Day week anyway with the first week of schools and parents and
yeah.
all that jazz.
Yep.
With a meeting on the 10th, but otherwise week the 9th looks good.
Anything
I don't
that-
know September yet.
Yeah.
I barely know tomorrow.
Well, you know, we got a planning board meeting.
Yeah, not that this matters, but that may be around the time we're going into the new town hall.
Yeah.
It's just a factor, but that doesn't affect this meeting.
We can break it in.
That would be a great thing.
Oh, where's the new town hall?
Right behind the old one.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right,
you.
we'll send out, we'll put it on everyone's calendar.
Thanks.
I can't wait till somebody reports back to me on the spacing requirements for adult entertainment, so. Good luck
Uh,
with it.
We'll
Good
get
night,
there.
Thank you.
Just let me
Thank
know,
you.
Mark, what that standard is.
He said aim for,
Yeah.
well, ballpark
I'll
of
follow up.
1%, and we'll see what happens.
No, but I need to know the distance if it's from the building or from the parcel.
Oh, with the cannabis, yeah. No, I think he said he
Yeah.
was gonna send that, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
no worries.
yeah.
We'll get it figured out.
Yep.
All right, everyone, have a good evening.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
Night.
Can I have a motion,
Good night,
everybody?
everybody.
Oh,
Motion to
Motion
adjourn.
to adjourn. Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions? Good
Aye.
night.
I have no
Good night.
board for a vote, so we're adjourned.
Yeah.
All right, Tom.
Good night, everybody.
All right,
Night, everyone.
all right, bye.